fortunately, I saw the horror stories. I heard the people sharing these types of failures and problems online, and I halted my journey into that side of dropshipping early enough before any long-term damage could be caused.
Today, we're going to be sharing the lessons that we've learned the hard way, so you might just look at dropshipping differently forever. We're going to be peeling back the curtain on traditional dropshipping, exposing the hidden snags, and revealing why some sellers are paddling in circles while others sail smoothly to profit. We want to dismantle the myths and lay out the blueprint today so you can avoid common pitfalls and towards a more proven path to success. So, Lewis, to kick things off, could you provide a bit of a snapshot for us for what traditional dropshipping looks like?
Yep, certainly. So I think when people think of traditional dropshipping, it usually involves selling lower cost items. So low ticket, you might hear it referred to, low priced items. And what that means is people perceive it to be easier because they think, oh, low price, is less friction to buy. But what it really means is that you have extremely thin margins as a seller. And it often means that you're having to source products in extremely oversaturated markets and try and sell into very busy markets as well. So it's kind of like trying to squeeze water out of a stone. It's, yes, it's potentially possible, but it requires a lot of effort for very, very little return. And there's easier places to obtain water, should we say. So in my early days, I remember jumping into this model thinking that it was the ticket to freedom. This was going to be the way that I would run my business. I remember discovering the concept of dropshipping, and I just remember seeing those sales come through and just being underwhelmed by, there's this mix of like excitement and thinking, amazing, I've just made my first sale, my first money online. And then you realize you've spent more in advertising usually than the profit on the razor thin profit margin product that you sold. Maybe you bought it for £5 and sold it for £20. So there's a £15 margin to play with. But if it costs you £30 to acquire the sale in ads, then obviously you're loss making, and that's no way to run a business. So it's a bit like you're filling up your bucket, but the bucket's got a hole in it, so it's actually emptying faster than you're filling it up. So it doesn't matter how much money you pour into ads, no matter how much you pour in, eventually it's never going to fill up and it's always going to empty. So yeah, there's a quick story about when I first started. And I think it was probably the eye-opening moment for me when I realized that, okay, this is not sustainable. I can't keep doing this forever. I will run out of money. I'll go bankrupt. One of the low-ticket products that I first focused on was selling men's fashion accessories, so men's ties, neckties. And I sourced them on AliExpress like everyone else was doing. And I thought I could run Facebook ads to this and increase the perceived brand value. And looking back now, I was so naive, and it's almost insulting to the customers to think that, do you really think that they wouldn't just find it on AliExpress or Temu or one of these websites, and you think that you can build it up into this item that's worth £20 instead of £3? But I did it. I mean, I created some cool video ads and it all was slick and it was working on Facebook and Instagram. And we did make some sales, but before I did that, I'll just rewind. I ordered a few samples for myself because I thought, okay, I'll get the blue one and the orange one and the green one and just see what they're like and see what my customers would be experiencing when these items arrived. And firstly, the packaging that they arrived in, it was so underwhelming. It was, it's great, crumpled up little packaging. I think they call it an e-packet. And it had this Chinese customs writing on it, where it says like imported from China. And then it even says the dollar price that we paid for it as sellers, as retailers. So imagine a customer seeing that, being like, I paid £20 for this and it says $3 or $2.58 or something. So there's that side of things. It took nearly 2 weeks for it to arrive. So I think it was about 14 days delivery time, and just a really disappointing experience. And I was kind of like in denial at that point because I thought, well, I don't want to admit that this isn't going to work because this is my entrepreneurial out. This is my venture. So deep down, looking back, I knew that this wasn't the type of business that I'd be proud of, but I tried anyway because I thought, nope, I've got to just put those worries to the side. And I was a bit misguided with it. And I just thought, let's just power through. But very quickly, my suspicions, unfortunately, were confirmed. And yeah, that first sale on the low ticket store happened overnight. So it happened while I'd gone to bed and gone to sleep, and the sale obviously came through overnight. I didn't know about that until the morning. Woke up in the morning, had a look at my emails, and that customer had completely flown off the handle because they thought they'd been scammed. They didn't get a tracking code straight away. They couldn't reach us. They said they'd left us a bad review. They'd sent me about 3 different emails that got increasingly more angry as they sent them. And you could just see this person was just had so much pent up anger and frustration that they wanted to vent on us as a retailer. And they demanded a refund and publicly wrote about our company on his Facebook profile. And he thought he'd been scammed. And it was really difficult because I woke up and again, there's this mix of emotions. There's like, I've just made my first sale. I've just made £15 online. And then I realized, oh dear, this is not good. Okay. And I'm reading the customers' increasingly angry emails. And yes, I made it right. I called him and eventually he was fine and he was okay. And I gave him a partial discount and then I explained the situation. And he did get his item eventually 2 weeks later, albeit. But I think deep down I knew that it wasn't going to be viable, but I tried anyway. And if you're thinking the same as me, let me save you the heartache and just confirm that after a while I realized it wasn't viable. And I know you've had exactly the same type of experience as well, James.
I have, yeah. I had the same thing. I thought that was my first route to go down, was selling cheaper ticket items because it's the first time you're doing a business. And often you think, well, that'll be more simple to sell. But all that really does is confine your margin so thin that it's easy to overspend on ads very quickly. And also the experience you're giving to customers is ultimately going to give you headaches because you're getting bad reviews, you're giving bad experiences. And I've been through that. I mentioned that we've learned these lessons the hard way, and you definitely proved that with that story, Lewis. It's something I'd never want to go back to. It is difficult when you're trying to sell products that you don't believe in yourself. It ultimately comes back round to you. And as you say, your fears get confirmed. So there are some myths around traditional dropshipping, whether that's AliExpress, Temu, dropshipping that you might have heard of. What are some of those myths? And are you able to sort of be a mythbuster and bust some of those myths today?
Let's bust the myths then. Yeah. So I love that show, by the way, Mythbusters. Don't they still make it? I think they may have stopped making that a few years ago. So first thing is that the myth that dropshipping is a get-rich-quick scheme. You'll hear loads of people talk about how I just started this dropshipping store and now I've got, a Lamborghini and a mansion and I fly around the world on private jets. And the reality is, because of that rubbish, that fluff, that fake marketing online, it makes many people underestimate the effort required to build a real sustainable business out of this. Now, another myth that is almost like a second layer deep is that dropshipping doesn't work. Because that's kind of the opposite end. There's the people who think dropshipping's super easy and really lucrative and really rich, and all I need to do is sell low ticket items and make my millions. But then there's the other, maybe more cynical side of things where people would say it just doesn't work whatsoever. And that again is not true, because that's like taking it to the complete other end of the spectrum. There are businesses that have operated since before the internet was created who've successfully used dropshipping. Think of companies like Wayfair, Argos dropship a lot of their products. The concept of dropshipping as a business model is not going anywhere, but it's how you use it. It's how it's implemented. And I think believing in the myth that you can just do as I did and set up a cheap men's tie store and buy products for $1.58 and sell them for £20 and everything will be fine. It's a bit like if you say you were going to go and open up a restaurant and you said, okay, I'm going to tell all of my customers in my marketing that I only serve the highest quality, locally sourced ingredients that are, hand put together by the best chefs in the industry. And then when they arrive out the back, I'm like, if I just serve up some microwave meals and hopefully they won't realize, and that when they taste the food, they'll think that it's gourmet, high-end restaurant quality food. Now, we know deep down it's not going to work, right? Because we think obviously they're going to realize. But sometimes, like I did, we think we've found a loophole in the system, and we have the audacity to try and fool people into thinking that it is restaurant quality food, even though we know that it's not. And what happens? Reality comes crashing down on us, and eventually we see the customer's disappointment. We get the 3 emails demanding a refund, saying how disappointed they were in the whole service, and we just watch it all come crashing down, and it's a shame. But you see so many newcomers to entrepreneurship and dropshipping and online business, they become dazzled by the amazing stories of overnight success and the YouTubers kind of touting how incredible a business model it was and how easy it was for them to get up and running, not realizing the behind the scenes grind. it absolutely is an amazing business model if implemented correctly and with enough hard work and front loading of the right strategy to get it right. But if you throw a few products and just assume that, we're going to make millions, then all we have to do is run a few ads, maybe some TikTok or Facebook or Instagram ads. We start to realize after a while that the YouTube tutorial video that we saw and followed to set up our Facebook ads, suddenly, before we know it, we've set our ad campaign live and we've spent maybe £60 on ads, and we've made maybe one sale, and we're like, okay, well, it works, but I spent £60 on ads. Let me just calculate my profit margin. Okay, but I made £12 in profit on that sale. And so we realize we're losing money. And fine to do as your first few sales, like that's the learning curve. But if you replicate that process enough times, eventually you're either forced to just shut it down, or even worse, you might not realize what's happening because Facebook might not be charging you the money straight away for the ads. And then later on, you get a huge request for refunds. You get your PayPal or payment processor account shut down or put on hold. And very quickly, it's easy to run up huge bills that you actually can't then afford to pay. So fortunately, I saw the horror stories. I heard the people sharing these types of failures and problems online. And I halted my journey into that side of dropshipping early enough before any long-term damage could be caused. But yeah, I think as with anything, it's hard work, not shortcuts, that are the cornerstone for any successful business.